Leszállt az ég dicső királya, leszállt egy csöndes éjszakán, jászolban fekszik rongyruhában, aki a mennyet alkotán. Légy üdvözölve, szent karácsony, mert földre hoztad az eget. Ím elmúlik a bűnnek éjje, hisz te az üdvöt hirdeted. Légy üdvözölve, szent karácsony, mert földre hoztad az eget. Ím elmúlik a bűnnek éjje, hisz te az üdvöt hirdeted.
This is a very special evening. It's one of my favorite evenings of the year because we get to talk about some of our goals and our mission at the Hungarian American Coalition, which I feel are just incredibly important.
Jó estét kívánok! Szeretettel üdvözlöm a kedves vendégeket is. Is everyone comfortable in their own living room? Are we all adhering to the dress code Zoom business attire? That's a business professional above the waist with matching sweatpants or pajamas below the fold. My name is Endre Szentkirály, Vice President of the Coalition, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies tonight, and we will be recording this event. I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's Virtual Mikulás Gala, the roots of which go back 3 decades. Yes, indeed, 30 years of positive transatlantic relations between Hungary and the United States. That's something worth celebrating, as is our honoree tonight, Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn. From Budapest to Washington, from New York to Florida, from California to Chicago, the Hungarian American Coalition thanks its supporters and celebrates the arrival of the Hungarian Mikulás in early December. I'm speaking to you live from the heart of the Midwestern Rust Belt, that famous Hungarian city, Cleveland, Ohio, with its Hungarian Heritage Museum right here downtown. A member organization of the Hungarian American Coalition, the Cleveland Hungarian Heritage Society has graciously allowed us use of their museum tonight, and we thank them for it. Meanwhile, over in Washington, just recently arrived to the Embassy of Hungary, Ambassador Szabolcs Takács. He has some welcoming remarks that he would like to share with you.
Jó estét kívánok, tisztelt Hölgyeim és Uraim! Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mondanom se kell, hogy nagyon nagy megtiszteltetés, hogy üdvözöltem Önöket, még akkor is, hogy most a virtuális térben vagyunk a járványhelyzet miatt, de nagyon-nagyon megtisztelő, hogy a Magyar-Amerikai Koalíció meghívott erre a mai eseményre, a rendhagyó Mikulás Gálára is. Ez az egyik első ilyen esemény, ami most részt veszek, mióta megérkeztem Washingtonba, úgyhogy nagyon örülök, hogy itt lehetek Önökkel, és ha megengedik, akkor angolul folytatnám nyilván a jelenlévők iránti tisztelet tekintetében is. So, distinguished guests, dear all, a very good evening to all of you all over the United States of America and beyond. May I introduce myself as Szabolcs Takács, the new Hungarian ambassador. I recently arrived in Washington, D.C. Exactly 2 weeks ago, and this is one of the first events that I can join, and it's a very special privilege to join with you, fellow Hungarian compatriots and friends of Hungary. First of all, it's reflecting on to what Endre was trying to say. I can assure you that I'm not only wearing a jacket and tie, I'm also wearing decent trousers, honoring everybody. So this is very important to share with you. Now, of course, at this time of the year, we should be together at the Hungarian embassy, as usual, because the Mikulás Gala is traditionally held at the embassy premises. And of course, it's our very strong intention to keep this tradition, to follow up this tradition. However, obviously, the pandemic has distracted our plans, so today we can be together only virtually. Again, reinforcing what I said, I'm deeply, deeply honored that the President of Hungary appointed myself to represent my nation, Hungary, in the United States of America, which is a huge honor and a huge responsibility for any Hungarian diplomat, any Hungarian representative. Let me start with welcoming the distinguished organizers and distinguished guests of this event. First of all, of course, President of the Coalition, who is also American President of the Hungarian Diaspora Council, Mrs. Andrea Lauer-Rice. I had the pleasure to talk to her. I'm very happy that I can now see you as well and not only meet you. Similarly, I very warmly welcome the joining of former American ambassadors to Hungary. His Excellency David Kornstein, Her Excellency Ambassador Colin Bell, and Her Excellency Ambassador April Foley. I send my warmest regards from myself and from the Hungarian government to all of you. Similarly, I welcome the Honorable Governor George Pataki, who is also with us, this year's coalition nominee, Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn. I'm very pleased to be with you. former executive director of the Charles and Lisa Simonyi Fund for Arts and Sciences, Ms. Susan Hutchinson, whom I had the pleasure to meet recently in Budapest. I'm very happy to be with you. President Emeritus of the Coalition, Mr. Maximilian Teleki, I'm very happy that you are here. And former acting managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Mr. John Lipsky, as well as, of course, board members and officers of the coalition, but all Hungarians representing Hungarian communities all over the United States of America, distinguished ladies and distinguished gentlemen. Now, of course, strengthening the bond of friendship between Hungary and the United States of America, the Hungarian diaspora has always played a prominent role. And I cannot underline how grateful we all are in Hungary. Not only the government, but all Hungarians for all what you have done to bring in close ties with the motherland and building bridges with the great nation of the United States of America. It's important for us Hungarians who are celebrating now the 30th anniversary of becoming free and democratic and independent again. So this year was very special in this respect as well. And this brings me to the topic of this event today, preserving our past and focusing on the future. We have a very, very distant and long past, we Hungarians, but Americans as well, I think. And this gives us a very solid ground to work together. And in this work, we very much rely on the Hungarian American community and all the diaspora organizations that are working laboriously to do that. Leaders and community members who are equally proud of being Hungarian as well as being American play an important role in helping to understand each other in the changing environment, in a changing world. Hungary has always felt responsible for the Hungarians living outside Hungary, be it in the neighboring countries, in the diaspora, whichever continent they are. And the American continent is certainly very significant because we have almost 1.5 million Hungarians living in this country, the United States of America. It's 10% of the Hungarian nation globally. So I think the numbers speak for themselves. You are a cornerstone and a very, very solid part of being Hungarian and building Hungary, preserving Hungarian culture, Hungarian identity, not only here in the United States, but globally, including the mother nation. This year, 2020, of course, was a very special year from many respects. It's not only the pandemic that completely changed our life globally and turned everything upside down, but we Hungarians also commemorate 100 years of the end of the First World War, the Treaty of Trianon that all Hungarians know. This word Trianon sounds very familiarly to all Hungarians, because it also marks when the country was torn apart. And it was a difficult 100 years. It was a difficult 100 years for everybody in the world, including Hungary. And our Hungarian past was very turbulent and very difficult. So that's why we attach very special importance that now we can live in a free and democratic world. And we can nurture and we can enjoy ties with family members, with friends, even if they are so far as we are far from each other. Let us not forget Hungarian communities, because we in the United States or back in Hungary, we can live in peace and we can live in security and stability, but this is not the case. This is not true for all Hungarians everywhere in the world. So we must also remember those Hungarian communities who are facing difficult challenges day by day. And in this context, let me express my deep gratitude to the coalition and affiliated organizations, the Hungarian Human Rights Foundation, for trying to help Hungarians who are in a more dire, more difficult situation. We will soon leave this year behind. It's a couple of weeks. We will celebrate now Christmas. We will celebrate the festive season, and we will kick in 2021, which will be again very special because it's 65 years since the anniversary of 1956, one of the darkest tragedy of the Hungarian nation that drove many of your families to leave your motherland, come to this country. And let me take this floor to thank America for giving new home to many of our Hungarian compatriots and giving them stability, security, a new life. It's very important, and we will never forget America for that. Next year, 2021 is special because we will also celebrate 100 years of Hungarian American diplomatic relations. We are preparing with a very comprehensive program, and we will reach out to the American government, to American leaders, as well as the Hungarian American community, yourself, your organizations, to do something together to send a strong signal to the world that we, Hungarians and Americans, share a very strong and very distinguished past. I think Hungarian-American relations have developed very well in the recent years. We have seen growing cooperation in traditional areas where Hungary and America and the United States of America are partners, allies. We are allies in NATO, of course. We attach a lot of importance to security. We are doing everything in our part to contribute to that. Of course, we see a growing number of American companies, investors coming to my country, to Hungary, and their number is over 1,700 companies giving jobs and giving security and stability to over 100,000 Hungarians back in Hungary. We are very grateful to that. And we try to cooperate with the United States of America in other fields, which is important for both of us and for all transatlantic community, energy and other fields. And we are eager to continue this cooperation. It's our very, very basic and key interest to keep a good relationship with the United States of America. Of course, now this country is going through domestic political changes. The whole world is watching eagerly, and we Hungarians are not an exception. My job here is to maintain this very good relationship that has been developed during the past years and decades, I would say. It was very important that the Hungarian president sent strong messages to the newly elected leaders of America, as well as the Prime Minister. And Prime Minister Orbán paid a visit to America, had a meeting with President Trump last year. Many of you recall it. I think there are very strong signals of our very strong and mutually beneficial cooperation. So it's my job to build on what my distinguished predecessors, other Hungarian ambassadors have done greatly. I'm sending to you their best regards as well. Laszlo, Sabo, and everybody else who you know very well and who have been working here very laboriously. I really commend their work, and I would like to step in the heritage that they have left behind. It's going to be a big challenge because they have done an extremely good job, and I'd like to just add what I can do to that. And I'm very, very happy really to meet you now virtually, and I do hope that in the upcoming weeks and months, the situation will permit us to meet in person. My office, the Embassy of Hungary, is your office. It's always open to you as well as our home in Washington, D.C. and beyond. And I'm very, very happy really that the coalition organized this event despite of the unprecedented challenges. Let me conclude by also remembering and the great achievements of the nominee of this event, and congratulate in advance this year's awardee, Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn. Congratulations to what you have done. Keep up the good work, and you can always rely on us. So thank you very much once again. I'm very, very honored really to be with you tonight. And if we don't meet, I wish you a blessed and healthy Advent season, and I wish everybody a happy festive season and a Merry, Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to listen to all of you. Thank you very much.
Köszönjük szépen, és Isten hozott Amerika földjére. Ladies and gentlemen, we have many important guests joining us tonight, but we especially wanted to mention Governor George Pataki, Ambassador April Foley, Ambassador Colleen Bell, Ambassador David Kornstein, Susan Hutchison, Coalition Chair Csilla Grauser, and all honorary consuls all across the United States. We greet our Coalition Board members and representatives of the Hungarian Embassy, many of whom are new to their new posts. We also greet Ambassador Réka Szemerkényi. And most of all, we welcome friends of Katalin Kádár Lynn gathered together in Reno, Nevada, and thank all of our wonderful supporters. The honorary chairs of the gala tonight are Coalition President Emeritus Max Dalecki and Coalition Chair Emerita Edith Lauer. Speaking of Edith Lauer, we cannot fail to mention the John N. Lauer Leadership Training Program. Here are some highlights of the program.
The Coalition is celebrating 20-plus years of building bridges between our two countries through leadership training programs for young Hungarians. Since 2000, the Coalition has sponsored an incomparable first-hand experience in Washington, D.C. for more than 115 interns. The best way to learn about this flagship program is to hear from the interns themselves.
After making it back to Hungary, the experiences that I gained, the connections that I made, really opened up the way for me to start a professional career in my life. Having a CV that says I was in the United States for 4 months and I worked at a think tank, it blows people's minds. I am 100% sure that after finishing my studies, I would get the dream job that I'm currently aspiring to. Anyone who wants to gain invaluable experience in the United States, in state practices, in models that the Americans use for the betterment of society. Anyone who wants to be part of a vibrant community of the Coalition and make friends that last for a lifetime, and anyone who is willing to take the first step on the road of self-discovery, I would wholeheartedly recommend and endorse the Coalition's Leadership Training Program.
Another thing that's really unique about the program is that it's a 360-degree experience. So not only did we gain work knowledge, but we were also able to participate in a lot of different cultural programs and self-development programs that I think added just as much benefit as our work placement.
Learning how to write policy briefs, learning how to write effectively so that others want to read your papers, and how to summarize are the skills that helped me to achieve my goals since I left the US. Besides interning, I had the opportunity to visit Senate hearings in person and to enter world-leading universities such as Johns Hopkins or Georgetown, which do cutting-edge research in my field.
I recommend the program because as an alumni you can become part of a community. The LTP Alumni Network actively provides programs and opportunities to network with others of the same interest. Being chosen as a scholar by the Hungarian American Coalition is only the beginning of our journey.
LTP is different from other traditional internship programs. It is linked directly with the vibrant Hungarian American community and matches interns with local DC-based mentors. The program is customized, and the flexibility allows interns to pursue their own areas of interest to further their careers and maximize their impact once they return home. We are grateful for our program partners, coalition members, diverse host institutions, incredible mentors, and of course our amazing interns. We plan to continue this flagship program in the future and continue to strengthen ties between both of our countries.
Currently, I'm engaged in investment banking.
I started to work in the Ministry of Human Capacities.
I'm currently a grad filmmaking student at NYUT School of the Arts, which is considered one of the best film schools around the world. If I wouldn't have done the Hungarian American Coalition internship and meet or work with the right people in DC, I would have never had the courage to apply for NYU or live in New York City.
Currently I'm working for one of the leading consulting firms in the world, doing projects all over the globe. And of course, this internship program really greatly contributed into my ability to work in all kinds of environments and on international projects.
Now I work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade in the Department for North America, so it is very fitting, I think.
The impulse and momentum that I built up there is still pushing me forward.
Helping young leaders of the future is an important mission of the coalition, and what better way to reach not only minds, but also everyone's hearts, if not through music. Modern music, pop music, classical music, traditional music. Unarguably, the best traditional folk music group in Hungary was formed in the year of my own birth, 1969. With tours to more than 32 countries, they are famous worldwide, and pretty much everyone knows them all over Hungary, and has for over 50 years. Magyar nyelvű vendégeinknek nem is kell bemutatnom a Kossuth-díjas együttest. Fogadják szeretettel Kalákát!
Koalíció elnöke Lauer Andrea, a védnöke Áder János köztársasági elnök úr, és természetesen kell üdvözölnünk a egyik főtámogatót, George Patakit, aki kormányzó úr volt, és a gála és díszvendége Kádár Lynn Katalint, őt is szeretettel köszöntjük. Sokat tett ő azért, hogy a magyarok különböző történelmi korszakaiból és különböző földrajzi részéről lévő magyarokról hírt adjon. De hát mi is valahogy ide csatlakozunk, annak a esnek a jeligéje, hogy megőrizzük a múltat és tervezünk a jövőre. Hát az, hogy megőrizzük a múltat, az már egy 50 éves együttestől elvárható. Hát, hogy mi mennyire tervezünk a jövőre, hát ezt nem tudom. Hát még azért egy kicsit szeretnénk, hogyha még koncerteznénk. Remélem, hogy a Covid is megengedi, hogy a vírus hagyja, akkor talán még eljutunk Kaliforniába még egyszer, ahol már többször voltunk, és nagy örömmel megyünk mindenhova, ahol magyarok élnek. Persze, ha azt mondom, hogy már 40 országban játszottunk, nyilván sok olyan országban, akár mondjuk távol-keleten, ahol nem élnek magyarok, oda is eljutottunk, de itt a Kárpát-medencében mindenhol muzsikáltunk már. És Észak-Dél-Amerikában, vagy éppen Nyugat-Európában, ahol diaszpora magyarság él, ott nagyon fontosnak tartjuk, hogy ezeket a dalokat, amiket itt a művészetek völgyében évről évre a Kaláka versudvarban énekeljünk, ott is elénekeljük. Egy fontos célkitűzése van ennek az Amerikai Magyar Koalíciónak, hogy juttasson el magyar fiatalokat az Egyesült Államokba, tanuljanak ott, és ezzel is erősítsék azokat a szálakat, amik a Magyarországot és az Amerikai Egyesült Államokat összekötik. Ezek persze nyilván kulturális szálak legfontosabb, az identitás megőrzése, a hagyományok, és mi aztán igazán el tudjuk mesélni. Nemrég Kolozsváron jártunk az ottani magyar napokon, aztán Székelyföldön. Szóval igazán el tudjuk mesélni, hogy egy magyarság van. Ott önök Amerikában, vagy Székelyföldön, vagy a Felvidéken, itt az imént egy felvidéki muzsikus játszott ezen a színpadon, vagy éppen Délvidéken, vagy bárhol, Buenos Airesben, mindig ugyanazzal a magyarsággal találkozunk, és ennek nagyon örülünk, és ez tartja életben tulajdonképpen a mi munkásságunkat is. Úgyhogy köszönöm, hogy meghallgattak, és sok sikert az akcióikhoz. Szabó T. Anna, az Ég Zsoltára. Perej, Uram, perlőimmel,
felej, Uram, felhőiddel, mondd, hogy rend van a világban, felejtsem, amiket láttam.
Nehéz lenni, tudod, Uram.
Szívünk, szemünk úgy tele van, fájdalommal, szenvedéssel, amit nem érünk fel ésszel. Körülöttünk annyi zaj van, a testtel is csak a baj van, a lélek meg szent a lélek, de nem éli a szentséget. Kő a szívünk, fáradt, nehéz, szemünk csak a képekre néz, tükrök közé vagyunk zárva, nem látunk ki a világra.
Itt lenn perbe vagyunk fogva, perlőnk fölénk magasodna, túl kiabál, elküld haza, hiába, hogy nincs igaza.
Perej, uram, mégse perej,
inkább csak felhőket terelj, a változó világ képét, ezzel hozd fölénk a békét.
Felej, uram, felhőhiddel, mértezz fel a kellő hittel, hogy törvényed ne feledjük, neged alatt legyünk együtt. Tanuljunk világot látni, indulatainkkal bánni, nem bujkálni, mint a gyermek, viselni a közös terhet. Éljük át a mások részét, legyen bennünk újra részvét, legyen bennünk hit, alázat, égből építs nekünk házat.
Kányádi Sándor verse következik most. Kuplé a Vörös villamosról. Holtvágányra döcögött végül a kopott vörös villamos, kalauz és vezető nélkül.
Döcögött holtvágányra végül
a kopott vörös villamos. Nem volt rakva virágos néppel, bezzeg amikor érkezett, bíborló színben sok beszéddel.
Meg volt rakva virágos néppel,
bezzeg amikor érkezett. Vörös lett, de amint utólag minden kiderül, bíborát nem a pirkadónap,
vértől veresre mint utólag,
minden kiderül. Mint a görög tragédiában, belül történt, mi megesett, a színen csak siránkozás van.
Mint a görög tragédiában,
belül történt, mi megesett. Hát, sic transit gloria mundi, a dicsőség így múlik el. Honnan lehetett volna tudni,
hogy sic transit gloria mundi,
a dicsőség így múlik el. És itt állunk ismét, mint az újjunk, sok hite volt, nincs telen, a magunk kárán kell tanulnunk.
Ismét itt állunk, mint az újjunk,
sok hite volt, nincs telen. Tülekedünk egymásnak esve, hagyjon a volt már villamos, sárgára vagy zöldre festve. Tülekedünk egymásnak esve, hagyjon a volt már villamos. Félre ne értsd a dalom, testvér, nem síratom, csak szomorú. Nem szeretném, ha lépre mennél, félre ne értsd, ismétlem, testvér, nem sírató, csak szomorú. De holtvágányra döcögött-e vajon a veres villamos? Eljárt-e az idő fölötte, és holtvágányra döcögött-e vajon a veres villamos? S nem lesz évajon visszatérte, boldog, aki nem éri meg, halomra halnak miatta, s érte, most is, s ha lenne visszatérte, boldog, aki nem éri meg. La 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 Tengereszki Pál, Tamkos Irató Károly verse. Szilszál, szalmaszál, merre jár a pál? Tenger szélén, hegyek élén, havas sziklák meredélyén, hol bolyong a messzi vágyó, tűzhegyjáró, felhőszálló, tengereszki Pál. Szélszál, szalmaszál, merre jár a pál? Tenger szélén, hegyek élén, havas sziklák meredélyén, hol bolyong a messzi vágyó, tűzhegyjáró, felhőszálló, tengereszki Pál.
Hol a bajkál, halad dajkál, ott mereng a sziklapartnál.
Göncöl szekér útját rója, ezüst színű űrhajója.
Varázsdallal, muzsikával, harcot vív a fagy királya.
Siklik villanyfelhők szélén, kóborol a tengermély.
Szilszál, szalmaszál, merre jár a pál?
Tenger szélén, hegyek élén, havas sziklák meredélyén, hol bolyong a messzi vágyó, tűzhegyjáró, felhőszálló, tengereszki Pál. Szélszál, szalmaszál, merre jár a pál? Tenger szélén, hegyek élén, havas sziklák meredélyén, hol bolyong a messzi vágyó, tűzhegyjáró, felhőszálló, tengereszki Pál. Szilszál, szalmaszál, gyere haza Pál! Vándorkedved meddig éled, játszanék már újra véled. Messzeségből hozzám téved, tőlem többé el ne tévedj. Lecki, tengereszki Pál! Szilszál, szalmaszál, gyere haza Pál! Vándorkedved meddig éled, játszanék már újra véled. Messzeségből hozzám tér meg, tőlem többé el ne tévedj. Lecki, tengereszki Pál! Szalmaszál, merre jár a pál? Gyere haza Pál! Lecki, tengereszki Pál!
Amazing music. How can you not love Hungarians after listening to that? Well, my friends, tonight we gather near the evening of December 6th, when the Mikulas usually visits Hungarian kindergartens. Originally a bishop from Asia Minor, near present-day Turkey, the original Saint Nicholas filled up our shoes left outside doors and windows with oranges, nuts, and chocolates. Heaven forbid our children misbehaved, because then they'd get hissed and growled at by the Krampus, the faithful, albeit scary servant of the Mikulas. Wait, this just in. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed that the Mikulas isn't just a mythical figure. The Mikulas actually exists. And here in Cleveland, the Hungarian Scouts have maintained this tradition for over 70 years. And he's visiting the Scout families as we speak. I apologize, my friends, but I have to interrupt tonight's gala. Let's cut live to a Hungarian family living in Cleveland, right here.
Mami! Mami! Jön a Mikulás bácsi!
Jó estét kívánok!
Szervusz,
Te vagy a kis Juli?
Igen.
Hát, nagyon sajnálom, hogy nem tudtunk találkozni a cserkészháznál az idén. Nagyon jó kislány voltál, nem is hoztam a Krampuszt. De látod, a betegség miatt még mindig eljön a Mikulás bácsi, és megtalálja a jó kis gyerekeket. Hoztam neked egy ajándékot.
Köszönöm, Mikulás
Csak
bácsi.
így tovább.
Köszönöm.
So he does exist after all, and I hope you have been good this year, so he may visit your house this coming weekend. I know our two countries have been good, both the US and Hungary, so they deserve unilateral peace and continued goodwill, whatever the future may bring. And the coalition has as its main mission to help both of our countries' futures. Indeed, all of the coalition's endeavors owe their success in no small part to our esteemed president, Ms. Andrea Lauer. Fogadják szeretettel a Magyar Amerikai Koalíció elnökét, Lauer Andreát.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person at the Cleveland Museum tonight. And if Mikulás bácsi were to try to come here in Atlanta, he would have to don quite a rain jacket because we're having what they call down south a frog strangler. So thank you, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to all of our distinguished guests, those of you here with us in person this evening, and those of us watching the video after the fact. Thank you so much for joining us for our historic first ever Virtual Mikulás Gala and online auction, a combination of two of our favorite annual events. And to those of you new to our family, welcome to the coalition. Well, it's been quite a year. That may be the understatement of the year. Instead of gathering on the banks of the Potomac River or at the Hungarian Embassy in Washington, D.C., here we are on yet another Zoom. I'm coming to you from my favorite Zoom corner, my special Christmas studio in Roswell, Georgia. But I hope you will find this Zoom call special in that you are among friends. And at the end of this tumultuous year, this feels like a tremendous opportunity to gather together in whatever way we can for fellowship, to give thanks, and to indeed celebrate. To celebrate the resilience of our organization and of our community, the coming of Mikulas, as we just saw, and we hope to see again in just a day or two, and the end of this unprecedented and hopefully never to be repeated again year. Our gala's theme of preserving the past while building for the future really just wrote itself. This evening, we're honoring Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn for her important work in preserving history, and all gala proceeds go to our scholarship and internship programs, which serve as an important building block for the future. Since we've been managing scholarship and internship programs ever since our founding some 30 years ago, we've seen an incredible alumni network emerge of more than 440 young Hungarian leaders in Hungary, the United States, and across the countries of the Carpathian Basin. Our program alumni are entrepreneurs leading incubators and nonprofits and companies. They're working in the US Embassy in Budapest and the Hungarian Embassy in DC, the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and so many more. They're diplomats or they're attending diplomatic programs. They're leaders in business, and they're creating nonprofits to give back. One of my favorite activities, one that I truly missed this year, is traveling to Budapest and organizing an alumni evening where I can meet our program alumni and hear about their accomplishments, their dreams, their next steps, see how we can help, who we can connect them with. It's always so inspirational to hear what they've been up to and how they have become such a force for good in our world. I'm happy to report that the future is indeed bright. Thank you to everyone on this call for your support of the Dr. Elemer and Eva Kish Scholarship Program, which provides partial scholarships to Hungarians studying in the United States. The Bognár Family Scholarship Fund, which provides partial scholarships for Hungarians studying in Hungary and the Carpathian Basin, and the John and Lauer Leadership Training Program, which you heard a little bit about, which brings 7 young Hungarians from across the world to DC every year for a 4-month hands-on internship program. Together, these programs impact about 50 young Hungarians across the world every year, and together, they are helping us build an incredible foundation for partnership and even stronger bilateral relationship, and helping make inroads with Hungarian communities across the Carpathian Basin. Ambassador Takacs already referred to this, but as we've seen, in some cases, Hungarians in the Carpathian Basin continue to struggle for even the most basic human rights. Earlier this week, we saw troublesome reports from Ukraine where Hungarian organizations and individuals, like our friend Laszlo Brenzovic, were targeted and attacked by the secret police. What a long way to come from 2018, when we proudly hosted Laszlo in DC and helped organize meetings for him with US representatives to better understand the battles both he and Hungarians as a whole were facing. I keep hoping one year we'll be able to retire that part of our mission statement, that part where we continue to monitor the human rights of ethnic Hungarians across the Carpathian Basin. But sadly, it continues to warrant our almost full-time attention and hard work, along with our partner organization, the Hungarian Human Rights Foundation. This year, as a community, we commemorated the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Trianon. It was reframed by the Hungarian government as the Összetartozás éve, the year of Hungarian unity, and also the year of the strong Hungarian community. They were two incredibly fitting names, even though we had no idea what was in store for us. We certainly saw both of these names, both of these designations in spades as the world changed around us from one day to the next, and we all had to adapt and evolve. So as I was preparing for this historic event, I reflected on the year, and I decided that I would rewrite Robert Fulghum's best-selling book, Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. My edition is entitled, Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned Facing a Pandemic in 2020. I learned that community matters to everyone. In fact, it is oftentimes a lifeline. And we saw that again and again throughout our community and through the great examples of our member organizations, through outreach to the elderly and the vulnerable. This was about more than just delivering a package of töltött káposzta, stuffed cabbage, but about seeing a smiling face, picking up the phone to check in and letting someone know that others were thinking about them. In some locations, we heard great examples of multi-generational outreach when communities tried to create meaningful connections between the generations, turning challenges into wonderful opportunities. I learned that community is not based on proximity. We already knew that, I think, as the coalition, but it was a very important reminder. We've seen examples of this all year long. From today's Zoom call, which brings together members and friends from some, I think it's 18 states and 3 countries, to the incredible example of the Összetartozás tüze, or the flame of Hungarian unity, that started as an idea in a scout troop in the Ukraine and spread across the great Hungarian nation, transcending borders and crossing oceans to see more than 7,100 candles lit, bonfires built, campfires ignited all across the world. I learned that in the most basic terms, you can always teach an old dog new tricks. I'm going to get into a lot of trouble for this if I don't reframe it. So let me recharacterize this so that I say the most seasoned veterans of the Hungarian American community are so wise that they will always learn to adapt no matter how challenging the circumstances. I think that may be due to the freedom fighter blood in their veins. But we have seen this across the board with our more mature members embracing new technology and new skill sets that may have seemed unthinkable just weeks before, so that they could all join in the 2020 tech revolution. And this applies to organizations as well. Amerikai Magyar Koalíció, or the Hungarian Community of Friends, one of our founding organizations, has been putting on the ITOT camp for the past 50 years. This year, they took it online and more than tripled their participation. This reminds me a little bit of back in the 90s in Hungary, where very few people had a telephone, or every few people had a telephone, but it was certainly not a saturated or well-covered market. Once the wall came down and the Iron Curtain lifted, Hungarians and others in the region leapfrogged an entire generation of telephone technology, and suddenly everyone had cell phones in their hands. I feel like we've all taken a similar giant step forward this year in both accessibility and familiarity with new technological tools, which will serve as a tremendous building block for the future. Unless you think that I'm picking on my parents' generation, I am not, because until this year, I had only been on, I think, one Zoom call, and it was a bit of a harrowing experience. So we've all been tackling these challenges together. I learned that sometimes creativity trumps convention. It's a good thing we all have Hungarian and American blood coursing through our veins, because this year, many of the solutions have required Hungarian creativity and innovation mixed with some good old American perseverance and can-do spirit. And together, we've been able to find the solutions. Kati, I hope you're listening. I learned that widening the tent is always a good idea. And this has actually never been easier than right now at this unique moment in history when we have the technological tools. So many of us, as I mentioned, have a newfound comfort level with them. And there is a huge craving and indeed a need to connect to the greater community. When you combine all of that with the seismic increase in English language resources that have been created, classes, podcasts, webinars, church services, cooking clubs, Zoom sessions, book clubs, you name it, it gives us the ability to reach out far beyond the people who have been involved in our community to this point, and specifically those who do not speak the wonderfully rich, though impossibly difficult to learn, Hungarian language. I learned that it's all in the way we look at things. You say challenge, and I say opportunity. If you've been to a coalition event over the past couple of years, you have likely heard me talk about community outreach. Across the US, there are 1.4 million Hungarian Americans. According to various academic studies, including one from our MC this evening, Dr. András Szentkirály, less than 10% speak the language or are involved in the community. That is a huge untapped population for us, and it is up to us to find the ways to engage them. Again, this year is a fantastic opportunity to do just that. I learned that individually, separately, we can do great things, but when we work together, we can accomplish so much more. Let me give you just a few examples of that from within our community. Amit, the American Hungarian School Association, created an incredible web platform, and within a week of the pandemic hitting, had 1/3 of our 33 Hungarian weekend schools go online. Since then, they have contributed to top-notch professional development programs, teacher training, advanced book clubs for children of all ages. It really has been remarkable. And we're so proud to have so many of these schools as our members. Hungarian Hub, founded by coalition member Piros Pazorek, became the largest online portal in our community. She had a number of really innovative out-of-the-box programs in addressing Hungarian Americans everywhere. And she partnered with Ildikó Nagy, executive director of the Hungarian House in New York, and our esteemed colleague who's helping us so much this evening, to create the Virtuális Színház, or the virtual theater series. This series was really remarkable, and it connected people from all across the Hungarian nation, from the Carpathian Basin, all across the United States and back again, with wonderful cultural programs. My favorite of which was, to commemorate the Treaty of Trianon, there was a live streaming folk performance from the hillsides of Transylvania. Talk about transcending the borders. I also learned other things, like don't apply lipstick before you put on your mask. Like I can support local Hungarian businesses by ordering takeout a lot, which is very handy. I'm happy to support Hungarian wineries and businesses by ordering their products. This one really, this was a tough sacrifice for me. I want you all to know we are not enjoying Hungarian wine at all. Cheers. But all of these funny little anecdotes aside, these are all ways that we can support other Hungarians in the community, in their businesses, in their organizations. We can show up on their Zoom calls and support them and let them know that they're doing a great job. We can invite them to these Zoom sessions and really build a stronger and stronger community. And this year has seen us coming together to do that even more than ever before. So it's really a moment, I think, to take pride in. Our first ever online auction, which we're launching actually at midnight tonight and will run for 2 weeks, is a perfect example of this. Dr. Katalin Kádár has been working with Hungarian vineyards to create some incredible package deals. A case of wine, if you bid on a case of wine and you get a tour of a winery, anywhere from Eget. I think I saw Kovács Nimrod on the call. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your support. We have the Kopcsandi winery in Napa Valley, Ghost Block, which is just an incredible winery. Though not Hungarian, we will proudly adopt them. We've had generous donations from so many people across the community, from Liz Voss at Magyar Marketing, who's done such an incredible job, from our esteemed chairwoman, Csilla Grauser, from another one of our wonderful BPs, Stefan and Erika Fedor, from my wonderful mother and our chair, Emerita Edith Lauer, from Erika Bokor and József Megyeri, and so many more. Thank you all for your generosity and for your creativity. As I said before, this is something none of us have ever done before. So we've really been reaching for the stars for this evening. So thank you for being a part of it. As I mentioned, the online auction goes live at midnight and goes for the next 2 weeks until December the 18th. These are some of the memorable items and real treasures that I'm sure will pique your interest. So please check it out and forward the link far and wide. You can do Christmas shopping while supporting a great cause and making a difference in the life of a young Hungarian who may be the future recipient of a scholarship. So as our fun virtual gala comes to a close, at least my part of it, enjoy the holidays. To my friends, my colleagues, and coalition supporters, both long time and brand new, we are so grateful for you all. Please stay safe. There's a lot to be proud of in 2020 and so much more to accomplish together in 2021. The coalition celebrates our 30th anniversary, for example. I mean, that's a big accomplishment, and we're so excited to see how we can come together as a community and as a membership to find unique ways to celebrate that. As Ambassador Takacs mentioned, we'll come together with the community to honor our 56ers, many of whom are our founding members, as we celebrate and commemorate the 65th anniversary of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. We will join with the embassy in celebrating the 100th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Hungary and the US. We have 2 member organizations celebrating their 100th anniversary, the Hungarian Magyar Club of Chicago and the Bethlehem Communities. And as I close out my term as the US President of the Hungarian Diaspora Council, there are many community-wide projects that we have planned that we will continue to work on together, and I hope these will truly make a difference for our community and for the future of the Hungarian American community. And I know all this because everything I ever needed to know, I learned facing the pandemic in 2020. So now I would like to introduce Governor George Pataki, a former governor to the great state of New York and a wonderful friend of the coalition and of Hungarians everywhere. Thank you for joining us this evening, Governor Pataki.
I'm sitting here drinking some good Hungarian wine, and I hope some of the others of you out there are doing the same thing. I have to run off because I think Mikulas will be knocking at my door very soon, because I have been a very good person the entire year. On a serious note, first, Ambassador Takacs, welcome. It is great to have you here in the United States. It was a privilege to meet you when we were in Budapest back in October. And I have complete confidence that you will do a tremendous job in building on the strong Hungarian American relations at the government level that we've seen over the past few years. So welcome. I can't be at an event like this without thinking of the people who have really made the Hungarian American Coalition so great. First of all, Max Teleki. Max, you are just a tremendous asset to the Hungarian American community, and I look forward to going back to the Carpathian Basin to visit some of those Hungarian communities outside of Hungary, and to Edith Lauer and Zsolt Szekares. I don't think Zsolt is on, but I see numerous other Szekareshes scattered throughout the crowd this evening. What you have done and what you have done with John, Edith, is just tremendous for Hungarians and Hungarian Americans. And Andrea, the fact that you have taken up the baton that has been passed to a new generation and done such a tremendous job is very exciting. I'm just going to be very brief. In October, I did have the chance to go to Hungary, and it's wonderful to see how well Hungary is doing. You might not know it from the American press, but when you walk the streets of Budapest or travel through Hungary, it is just a truly thriving country where there's a tremendous sense of optimism that I haven't sensed in Hungary for some time. We're now going to have a new administration in Washington. An ambassador, that makes your job a challenge, but it makes all of our jobs important. That we have to continue to work to build the Hungarian diaspora community here in America, to work to strengthen the image of Hungary here in the United States, and to continue to fight for basic human rights for Hungarians, not just in Hungary and other countries, but throughout the Carpathian Basin. So it's an honor to be with all of you tonight. I just wish it had been in person. It's always such a fun night. But I've done my best to try to make it a fun night on my own here with my very good Tokai wines. So congratulations, and I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and a tremendous New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Pataki. Cheers, egészségedre. We miss seeing your smiling face in person, but soon, I'm confident. Now I'd like to introduce Edith Kislauer, Chair Emerita of the Coalition, board member of the Hungary Initiatives Foundation and the Victims of Communism Foundation, among many, many other roles across the Hungarian American community. And lastly, my wonderful mother.
Thank you very much to my wonderful daughter. I am delighted to have the job tonight of introducing to you Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn, who is this year's honoree of the Hungarian American Coalition. Katalin Kádár Lynn is a historian based in Budapest in California, whose principal area of scholarship is World War II and the Cold War, with an emphasis on Central and Eastern European émigré political activities, as well as organizations. In 2007, she and her husband, Douglas Lynn, established a foundation based in Hungary called Modern Minerva Alapítvány, which supported graduate students in their efforts to publish and publicize their research and writing. In 2011, Dr. Kádár Lynn was awarded the Gold Cross of Merit by the President of the Hungarian Republic for her work with this foundation. In 2012, she founded Helena History Press, LLC, a publishing house specializing in scholarship from and about Central and East Europe. Under her leadership as editor-in-chief, HHP has translated and published hundreds of works by American, Serbian, Hungarian, Polish, and Czech authors. Thus, she provided much needed access in English into historical research related to US, Central, and Eastern European relations during World War II and during the Cold War and since. For Hungary and Hungarians, her major contribution has been the writing, translating, and publication of valuable, heretofore largely unknown research on Hungary that has filled a large void in this field. Katalin was born in Budapest. Her family fled Hungary after World War II because her father was a civilian member of the Hungarian government. She spent her first years in an Austrian refugee camp until in 1952, the family was granted asylum in the US in Riverside, California. Educated at the University of Colorado at Denver, she earned her Bachelor of Arts degree with a dual major in history and English literature, followed by a Master of Liberal Arts at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Her PhD in 20th century Hungarian history was earned at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest. Prior to her return to graduate school, Dr. Kádár Lynn had an extensive, successful management career in retail marketing and as a professor of marketing. Her community interests include the arts. She has served on the boards of the San Francisco Ballet Auxiliary, the Denver Symphony Orchestra, Opera Theater of St. Louis, Friends of the St. Louis Art Museum, and many others. In the Hungarian American community, she has always also been active. She serves on the editorial board of the journal Comenius, the International Advisory Board of the AHEA e-journal Hungarian Cultural Studies, the board of American Hungarian Library and Historical Society, and American Hungarian Federation. She actively supported and advised the Memory Project. Dr. Kádár Lynn continues to do research and writing. Upcoming and recent publications can be found on the HHP website, www.helenahistorypress.com. Helena History Press's volumes are distributed worldwide by Central European University Press. She currently divides her time among St. Helena, California, Budapest, Hungary, and Reno, Nevada. It gives me great pleasure to present the Hungarian American Coalition Award to Katalin Kádár Lynn with the following inscription on the award. Hungarian American Coalition 2020 honoree. In appreciation of Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn, whose commitment to professional scholarship on Central East Europe contributes to a deeper understanding of the region's history and cooperation among its peoples, and has earned the enduring gratitude of the Hungarian American community. December 4th, 2020. Heartfelt congratulations and many thanks to you, dear Katalin.
We left Hungary in the fall of '44 when the Russians finally penetrated Hungary proper. And my father was with the Justice Ministry, and the Hungarian government actually moved, I think, to Szombathely, and moved west at that point in time. So the seat of government moved, government employees moved, and so families went along. And then, so of course, then the last days of the war, you know, when the Ostrom of Budapest, we were out of Budapest. But then the last days of the war, then clearly things were totally chaotic. And the order came for the government employees that they should try to make their way west. In other words, moving toward Germany. And that's when we started sort of our little sojourn, first in a government truck, which then ran out of benzene, and then walking, essentially, my mother, my grandmother, and me with my Billy. My most important accessory at that point in time when you're 2.5 years old, and we made our way west. My brother always chose to look at our being refugees as sort of a negative thing. I always thought of it as a strengthening experience. I always thought that, hey, if I can do well with this, I can do well with anything. And you know, I learned to socially adjust. I learned to culturally adjust. In several different countries as a child. Being a refugee gave me skill sets that other people, my peers, never had. And I could use them to my advantage consciously, many times in business and in social situations. I always thought of it as a sort of a gift. A very special kind of gift that was inadvertent, and it wasn't very pleasant in many aspects, but nevertheless, it was a gift, and it gave me skill sets and coping skills that a lot of other people never had. I'm very happy to be able to support projects which will benefit Hungary and Hungarians in the entire diaspora, whatever way I can. And even my professional life, I mean, this whole publishing business that I've started and the books that we publish essentially serve the cause, so to speak, of you know, the sort of the Hungarian position in the world. And so I think you can give back in different ways. So I started out just doing my own research and writing, and while I was at the university here, I saw that there was just a huge void. There's just a huge disconnect between these really talented young people, many of whom are doing some very good research, and the fact that this research never goes out there in the bigger world of scholarship. No one knows it. You know, they publish 20 books of somebody's doctoral dissertation. It goes on the library at ELTA. It goes, you know, 12 people get it, grandparents get it. No one ever sees it again. I'm talking about Bölcsészet. I'm not talking about the sciences. Sciences are a completely different thing. But the liberal arts, it's just sort of like a black hole of scholarship. And I thought, you know, if I could start a little publishing company, if I could just, you know, produce a play, if I could start a little publishing company, this would really be a good idea. I also feel that part of being a friend of Hungary is making our tent bigger. I'd like to see our tent bigger. I would like to see, you know, if I go to a function that is for the Friends of Hungary, not the same players, but what about people who are in IT who are interested in doing business in Hungary? What about people who are, you know, people who are actually, I have acquaintances who've been here 16 or 17 times with us, who have spent their own money to come to Hungary. They're very interested in Hungary. They're not a drop of Hungarian blood. They adore it. And I think those are the people we need to also cultivate. Not to leave the people of Hungarian heritage behind, please don't get me wrong, but also, make, as I said, make our tent bigger. I think it would be better for us as a nation to be less insular. Tisztelt elnök asszony, tisztelt bizottsági tagok, kedves hölgyek és uraim! Nagy tisztelet részemre elfogadni az Amerikai Magyar Koalíció díját. Nagyon hálás vagyok. Ez a díj elismeri a mi kiadónkat és a munkáját. Amikor alapítottuk a céget több mint 10 évvel ezelőtt, a szándékunk volt megismertetni a magasfokú kutatást, ami létezik Közép- és Kelet-Európában az angol olvasóval. Úgy érzem, hogy egy szerény módon elértük a célunkat, de sok lehetőségek vannak még előttünk. Na most angolul folytatom, mert tudom, hogy egy nagy rész, aki magyar származású Amerikában, nem beszél magyarul. Én egyetértek az Amerikai Magyar Koalíció elnökével, Andrea Lauer Rice-szal, aki helyesen képviseli azokat a magyarokat is. We should welcome all who are of Hungarian descent or those who are interested in the culture and history of the nation. We also need to recognize those scholars who are non-Hungarian, such as Jaap Scholten, the author of Comrade Baron, who research and write about Hungary with great knowledge and dedication. I'm very proud of this award and the recognition it gives our small team of scholars, editors, translators, and graphic designers, a great number of whom are Hungarian and based in Hungary. We have, as an editorially independent publisher, been able to produce high-quality scholarship and distribute worldwide in the Anglophone world. And distribution is key, as we must work within the logistical network of international book publishing to create visibility for our books. We've attempted to identify and publish books forgotten by history that provide valuable insight into the near past in Hungary, such as the diary of Miksa Fenyő, one of Hungary's most prominent and influential public intellectuals of the 20th century, written in the 10 months he was in hiding from the Gestapo in 1944-45. A real-time memoir, very powerful in its painful observations. We also had translated by Thomas Cooper and published the memoir of General Vilmos Nagybátysány Nagy, Hungarian Minister of Defense from 1942 to 1943. All but forgotten by history, considered an arch enemy of the state by the Germans and the Soviets. As Minister of Defense, he insisted on humane treatment of POWs and conscripted laborers. The Jerusalem-based Yad Vashem organization recognized him as the first Hungarian named as righteous among the nations. His memoir should be part of the classic canon of literature related to World War II. We are proud to have published Kinga Széchenyi's meticulously researched history of the Hungarian internal deportations during the communist regime, titled Stigmatized, and the English edition of Jaap Scholten's Comrade Baron, a worldwide bestseller in 4 or 5 languages, a moving history of the attempt by the Romanian communist government to eradicate its Transylvanian aristocracy of Hungarian descent. Our recent focus has been a cluster of works about pre- and post-World War I history of Central Europe, including the English edition of distinguished scholar and diplomat Géza Jeszenszky's History of British-Hungarian Relations Before and After World War I, a new biography of Tomáš Garai Masaryk by Zdeněk Dávid of the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and Swiss-based scholar Zoltán Bécsi's work on the attempts to form a Danubian federation after the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We're interested in continuing to publish the history of Hungarians abroad. Released last year, Endre Szenkirály's Being Hungarian in Cleveland makes an important contribution to the history of Hungarians in North America. A few years ago, we published a compendium dealing with Hungarian language survival in Transylvania, written principally by scholars of Hungarian heritage teaching in Transylvania and ably edited by Judith Keserű Németi, known to many of you through Hungarian Scouting. This award today is their award as well. It is our authors and our dedicated publication team that make these books possible. It is my honor and pleasure to share this award with them, and regardless of the challenges facing the book industry today, I can assure you that we will continue with our work as there is much more to be done. In closing, I would like to dedicate this award to the memory of my husband, recently deceased honorary Hungarian, Douglas G. Lynn, who, although a total failure at learning the language at the Debrecen Language School, nevertheless loved Hungary with all his heart. Without his support, Helena History Press would never have seen the light of day.
Congratulations, Katalin, and thank you for your wonderful thoughts. Yes, we can all do a quiet clap, quiet Zoom clap. I think that was amazing, so inspirational. Katalin and her work really reminds us of the importance of preserving the past, as we have all mentioned tonight. The alumni programs, the alumni of our scholarship and our internship programs show us the promise of the future, but we cannot overlook the present, certainly not after the year we have just been through. So I'd like to announce another award this evening that we have just created, the Unsung Hero Award. This award was inspired by my father, John N. Lauer, who was dubbed an honorary Hungarian due to his incredible support of my mother, me, coalition activities, and so many other organizations through the past 30 years. His example was indeed remarkable, but he is not alone. Doug Lynn, as Katalin just mentioned, was also that kind of man. And based on the stories I've heard over the past several weeks as we've been organizing the gala, I've often thought that they would have been great friends. Perhaps they're tuning in through their own special Zoom session tonight and are preparing to head off to hunt something a little bit later. We can only hope. And so many of us on the call this evening also have that kind of tremendous support from our non-Hungarian spouses. I see so many of you on the Zoom calls today. It would take too long to mention everybody, but thankfully, I can tell you that we have seen them in action across Facebook for years and in person. They helped set up the Hungarian festivals, the Gulyás competitions, the galas. They sit through hours of Hungarian programming they cannot understand. They learn to csárdas, sometimes they write checks. And in my case, they watch the kids and keep them out of the living room so that we can present for this evening's HAC Virtual Mikulás Gala for the first time ever. And they watch as we are sometimes run ragged, putting on our various activities, all for the love of our heritage and our community. We simply could not do it without them. We could not do it without you. I'm looking at all of you who I can see. There we go. Agi, I see you clapping. So last week, we mailed out about 20 honorary Hungarian superhero buttons to the unsung heroes of the Hungarian American Coalition. This is just a small token of our thanks. We are grateful to each and every one of you for your amazing support. And next year, when we see each other face to face again, I look forward to seeing you wear these buttons with pride on your tuxedos, and in Wendy Teleki's case, on her gown at the gala, and your suit jackets and cocktail dresses at the Mikulas dinner. If you have a candidate for this club of superheroes, just let us know. This will hopefully become an annual tradition, as it is so, so very important. And now, as we come to the end of our program, everyone should refill their glasses. Here come the toasts. It is my absolute honor to introduce the wonderful Susan Hutchison, former director of the Charles and Lisa Simonyi Fund for the Arts and Sciences for 16 years, and a longtime incredible supporter and friend of the coalition and all things Hungarian, and so many of us on the call this evening. She will deliver our first toast from Seattle, Washington. Susan.
Thank you. And it's only 4:30 in the afternoon, but we'll break the rules and drink champagne, at least here in our house. I want to tell a very quick story before I provide my toast. And that is my first exposure to a Hungarian was when I was in first grade and found a program on TV called Learn to Draw with John Nagy. And this particular show had a huge impact on me through the years. And in fact, just recently, I showed my husband something I specifically learned, a skill I learned from John Nagy about an artistic concept called perspective. It occurs to me that through my experience with the Hungarian American Coalition, my wonderful friendships with those of you who are Hungarian Americans and Hungarians, Ambassador, I feel that perspective is one of the greatest gifts you've given me. And as you know, I can hardly make it through one of these dinners, whether it's the one in April, May, or the Mikulás, where I don't well up with tears because of the stories and your history, what you have endured, what you have suffered, what you can teach us. Those of us in America right now, this is not a happy time in America, no matter how you feel politically, one way or the other. It's rough, and it's rough with the pandemic, as you've said. It's rough in a lot of ways. And it's so good for me to hear the perspective of the Hungarians and their tremendous courage through the years, through the momentous events, many of them very difficult and very tragic. So my toast is to you, the Hungarian Americans and the Hungarians who we love here in America, to the courage you show us, that we would be able to hang on to that courage as we move forward in the next years ahead. So thank you for the gift you've given me, your perspective. Cheers.
President Emeritus of the Hungarian American Coalition, Mr. Max Teleki, will toast next.
Thank you, Andre. I almost forgot. I will second the motion on the floor brought by the Honorable Susan Hutchison about perspective. I think we all need perspective in times like these. I'd like to start by saying a hearty welcome to Ambassador Takács, to members of the board, distinguished guests, not, of course, least but not important, I'd like to acknowledge our honoree, someone who has had such an admirable life and career, and someone I'm so pleased that we are recognizing today. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those that began this organization, those that joined this organization, those that are currently members of your organization, and hopefully some on this call who would consider at some point in the future joining this organization. It's done a lot for me personally. It's reconnected me in a different way to my heritage. And I think that it's provided the perspective, as Susan mentioned, that's required in times like these and in other times, in good times and in bad. And I think that's important. So my toast is for our honoree tonight, for everyone on this call and everyone that could not join us, and of course to the coalition as we inch towards the 30th anniversary. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
And for our final toast this evening, all the way from Reno, Nevada, our esteemed honoree, Katalin Kádár Lynn.
I always say Reno is a place where it's easy to socially distance.
We are.
However, my friends have gathered, friends of Hungary, future friends of Hungary, the person I referred to who has made the 16 trips to Hungary without any kind of grant or stipend, my friend Susan Geary. We're all here to toast the coalition, because without you, these programs would not happen. Without your initiative, your enthusiasm, and that same spirit that I was talking about in my interview in the Memory Project, where you take something that is difficult and perhaps not exactly the optimum circumstance, and you power through it and you make it successful. And that's what we Hungarians do best. So to all of you, hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Cheers. Thank you.
Well said, and we thank you for all you've done. We'd also like to thank our generous sponsors tonight, the Centene Foundation, the Hungary Initiatives Foundation, the Charles and Lisa Simonyi Fund for Arts and Sciences, Mrs. Edith K. Lauer, Ambassador Colleen Bell, the Honorable Anikó Gál-Sát, the Honorable Mary Mocsary, and Dr. Katalin Kádár Lynn. I would also like to thank Noémi Bánhidi in Budapest, Ildikó Nagy in New York, and Zsolt Molnár here in Cleveland for their technical support tonight. But most of all, the Coalition thanks you, our dear friends, for taking part in tonight's Virtual Mikulás Gala and for your unending support all year long. We hope to see you next year, maskless, vaccinated, and in person in Washington. Until then, please bid on our online auction, which will be running through the next 2 weeks. Shop for some very unique items while supporting the Coalition's scholarship programs. And next, we have our virtual cocktail hour, in which you can join random pairings, random small breakout rooms. This concludes tonight's program, but feel free to stay for our virtual cocktail hour. Have a very pleasant evening.
Mennyben az Istennek dicsőség, mennyben az Istennek az angyali seregek, vígan így énekelnek, dicsőség, dicsőség Istennek. Békesség földön az embernek, békesség földön az embernek, itt az igaz szeretet, a kis Jézushoz vezet. Békesség, békesség embernek. Dicsérjük a szent angyalokkal, imádjuk a hívpásztorokkal, az isteni gyermeket, ki minket így szeretett. Dicsérjük, imádjuk és áldjuk. Dicsőség az örök Atyának, és értünk született Fiának, s mindkettő szent lelkének, a malaszt kút fejének,